Hi, my name is Abigail Justice, and you're listening to the Adams State Podcast. Today I'm here with Dr. Nearing, physics professor and director of the planetarium.
Hi, happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on with your busy schedule and me being busy as well. Today I asked you to come on to talk about the planetarium, which is one of the coolest things Adams have on campus.
Right. Yeah, the Adams State Planetarium, it is one of only 3 planetariums on college campuses in Colorado, so the others being CU Boulder and the Air Force Academy. So I feel pretty fortunate that we have such a great resource to share with our students and the community.
When you told me that we were one of 3 in Colorado, I was really surprised because I knew we had it, but I didn't, I understand the Air Force having it, but I didn't know CSU Boulder had one, which was kind of cool in my head.
Right.
So the planetarium shows, what actually happens at them?
It's a good question, and there are different versions of planetarium shows. So we actually provide planetarium shows every week on Wednesday and Thursday afternoons, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., most weeks throughout the semester. And in most of those are public programming, and they're professionally produced science-oriented, sometimes documentaries, sometimes professional movies and things of this nature, but it happens on a full dome. So the screen, instead of a nice flat projection screen, it's a hemispherical dome that is sitting up above. So when you've been outside to see what the planetarium looks like from outside, hey, it looks like half of a sphere, right? And so that's the planetarium screen. It's projected up on that dome. So all of the movies that we show are full dome movies, and it's a bit more of an immersive experience than you would get at a regular movie theater, for example. And then all of the movies and programming that way are science-oriented. And so it runs the spectrum from a lot of astronomy-based programming. So things about black holes, things about supernova explosions, things about solar superstorms and stuff like that. But it also has a lot of other opportunities for more life science. We have things that are related to Charles Darwin. We have some Earth and space sciences. We have some climate programming and so forth. And so they're usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 35 minutes long. We run a couple of those on Wednesday nights and a couple of different ones on Thursday nights throughout the semesters.
I think that's really cool, especially for the sciences, because they're really important to us as humans and in the world, because if we don't understand what's going on around us, then how are we going to impact it?
Yeah, and they're not too over the top and heavy with technical terms and things of this nature. It's more about getting people interested in the science. So a lot of the programs are geared toward kids as well, and so they're really super kid friendly. All of our programming is free as well, so the Wednesday and Thursday shows are no cost to anyone, and people can come as they like.
I think that's all the planetarium experiences I've had when I was younger, when my mom was taking me, or schools. You've always had to pay for them, so I think it's really cool that Adams is doing it for free for the entire community. Yeah,
we live in an area where not everyone has the same resources that they might have elsewhere. There's in the state, and so we think it's really important to provide this access and opportunity to the entire community and let everyone experience that, not just those who would be able to manage a $5 or a $10 ticket. So it's always free. It's really pretty nice.
I think that's really, really important, especially to bring science into the community.
Yeah.
Which, I know personally, a bunch of my friends don't even know water or what's going on in science, which I think is really important to bring to the next generation and to my generation as well.
I agree.
And I really, why did the planetarium at Adams start?
Yeah. So the history of the planetarium goes back to the late 1950s, actually. It was, I guess, the president at the time and sort of the head individual in the sciences division sort of came up with the idea of doing a planetarium here just sort of the importance of having, first of all, we have great skies for viewing, and so astronomy in general is great. And so the planetarium also provides an opportunity to be indoors and discuss some of these things. So they started a fundraising project back in about 1960 or so. So the planetarium building itself and the attached observatory, which we don't utilize that much anymore, but those two components were funded through private donations exclusively. And back in 1960s, it was about $135,000. That would be about $1.3 or $1.4 million today. So if you think of trying to raise that amount of money from private donations, right, and not grants, that is a lot of money.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so that's sort of how it started. And so they raised enough funds over the course of the early 1960s. And in September of 1964, it opened for the first time. And it was a state-of-the-art projector at the time, which is nowhere near our current capabilities in terms of digital projection systems. But it was a really fascinating system to be able to project the night sky using the technology of the early 1960s. They did a lot of public programming back then as well. So it was not unusual to have several thousand people, so 5,000 to 8,000 individuals would go through the planetarium over the course of a year with the public programming that they had available back in those days. Back then, the planetarium theater, I think, sat around 60 people at a time. That same projection system that was purchased in 1964 was what the planetarium had until 2012. And so that was a long run, but it was a very dated projection system at that point. And we managed to find grant funds to upgrade the system to a digital technology. We renovated the entire planetarium theater with all new seating, changed the orientation of it, and started then offering the current variety of planetarium programming. So like I said, a lot of those are sort of full dome movies. We also have the capability of projecting the night sky up on the dome and investigating how things have changed throughout history and how things change from one month or one day to the next. And so that's the second type of planetarium program that we do, is a live planetarium program. We still do a lot of school groups that come through, and so much like was the case back in the 1960s, several thousand people each year come through the planetarium. And then on top of that, we also use it in our classes. So we use it in the astronomy class, sometimes in the geology classes as well.
And what inspired you to take up the mantle of being the director of the planetarium?
That's a good question. So folks that have known me, I've been at Adams State I'm finishing my 26th year, and I've worn many hats over that time. So I do have an interest in astronomy. We've had a variety of planetarium directors, some of them in the geosciences previously, and then some of them in physics. Those are the two primary areas. Currently, I'm our only physics professor, and I think it is a really important resource for us to continue. And so I had written a large portion of the grant that helped fund the original renovation back in 2012. And so it's an interest of mine. It is astronomy is a passion of mine. Science communication is a passion of mine. So I'm really excited to be able to continue on as others have done in the past.
And thank you for actually picking up the mantle, because not a lot of colleges actually have a planetarium, especially like our size college.
Right. Yeah, and it's just super important to keep using that resource, right? I would hate to see that it would go underutilized and just fall into disrepair. So it's an important asset to our community, draws in a lot of students and draws in the public.
Yeah. And I want to thank you again for coming on today.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And is there anything else you want to say?
I think that's probably all I really have. There is one other side of the planetarium, which is the observatory. In 2012, we did build a new observatory on the north end of campus, and we do have some public programming available with that. It's much less frequent, and it is always weather dependent. And so it's one of these things where sometimes there's an announcement that goes out that day that we're going to have an open night at the observatory, but it's another opportunity for folks to get out and see the night sky and appreciate what this universe has.
Thank you for coming on today.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Of course.
All right.
I'm Abigail Justice, and you listen to the Adams State Podcast. Have a great day.